Hi everyone, my name is Sam Willens, your mother of Valkyries and your host of the Sword and the Ribbon podcast. This week on the podcast, I am chatting with Kristin Reyelt, the artist and designer behind the Goddess Armory. As warriors, it's so important to have the right weapons, but also the right armor. Without it, we wouldn't have any protection for our bodies. Kristin creates custom armor and dresswear. How fucking cool is that? She is even creating a full armor set for me, and I can't wait to wear it. So let's suit up. Hi, Kristin.
Hey, Sam.
I'm so glad you're on the podcast today because I am so obsessed with your work and your armor.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
So, for those of you who don't know, can you tell us about yourself a bit?
Sure thing. So, I like to refer to myself as a Renaissance woman, as I wanted to and have done all of the things in life. I currently have been a visual artist, production designer, a stunt woman with a blade specialty, lifelong equestrian, equine body worker, professional Renaissance fair goer, costume designer, prop maker, avid weapon collector, competitive weightlifter, dog mom, plant mom, and a wandering witch, just to name a few. I originally hail from South Florida, and I grew up in a really creative household that also had a lot of love visiting Disney World and seeing shows on Broadway, which definitely played a really big role in my love of immersive entertainment. I started painting when I was 13, and fast forward a few years, I found myself graduating with an MFA in production design from SCAD, which is the Savannah College of Art and Design. Then I made my way to New York shortly after, where I worked in experimental theater. And then I became a display coordinator for anthropology while simultaneously continuing stage combat training that I picked up in grad school. And after my time in New York was up, I made my way to Atlanta for the film industry to continue pursuing scenic design and stunt work. And I've been doing that for the last 6 years.
So is there anything you don't do is basically what I got out of that.
I mean, not really.
I mean, you're so badass.
I have no chill, truly. Like, I just like think I was born and was like, adventure always. Let's go.
I love it. You are surrounded by all the people who love all of these things. I like want to dive into every little piece, but this podcast will run on forever. So yeah. We'll try
it's
to.
A lot. It's a lot.
I mean, I love it. I'm sure everyone else loves it. Like where I just want to dive into like one or two things before we like fully get into it. Like tell me about like how you got into like stage combat and then entered into the film industry.
Yeah. So that was totally a side quest that I had no idea was coming. So I had to choose an elective while I was in graduate school. And I've always been an athlete my whole life with like riding horses and playing sports. And I saw that stage combat was an option for an elective. And I was like, well, I'm definitely going to do that. Like, that's super fun. So it was Stage Combat 1. And we started by learning unarmed combat. And then you learn knife and rapier in Stage Combat 1. So yeah, I took that class and I was the only athlete in a room full of actors. And I was badass at it, honestly. And I was like, this is super cool. So I took Stage Combat 2. I got, good friends with a professor. And then I went and did a bunch of stage combat workshops in the US. So to be certified in stage combat, you get certified through the Society of American Fight Directors. And they're responsible for all the fight coordination that happens in the theater world and film world. And yeah, so I was like, well, I'm going to do this and also design. And yeah, that's kind of where that went.
That's so, I wish my college had that. I'm sure everyone listening is probably like, oh, why didn't my college offer this?
It was the best. Like, I've learned like sword and shield is probably my favorite weapon set to fight with. Quarterstaff, we learn knife, single sword. And then, as you take workshops, you can take really interesting classes like broadsword versus cape and cane, which is like a really weird, like they would just like come up with like really like, how about like a found object fight, which is really interesting to choreograph. And my stage combat professor in college, where I learned all this from, one of his really good friends was the fight director who did Troy and all of Vikings, the entire show. And he came for one of the workshops, and I learned a fight from Vikings. It was like short sword and axe versus sword and shield. And yeah, I mean, I was just like living my best life.
Cool. Oh my God. Oh, that's okay. We could talk all day on this, but we'll progress on. Maybe we'll bring it back. So what sparked your fire and passion for armor in general, and what made you decide to create your own?
So besides my big love for the fantasy genre and visual storytelling, the idea to actually open a shop was honestly out of boredom and freedom response to quarantine in 2020. Since my industry was shut down and I, like I said, have no chill, I needed to do something. So I wanted to utilize that time to create things that I didn't normally have time for, like so many other people did. So my shop, One with Goddess, and specifically the Goddess Armory, actually started out initially as Sacred Knot Studio on Etsy, where I made more functional and decorative items that I thought would sell. And I guess now is the best time to clarify that for listeners, the armor and fantasy dresswear I currently make is non-traditional. I craft it in the style of macrame. So everything is hand knotted. It's not typically made like you would cut pattern pieces like with leather and whatnot. So anyway, it evolved to wearable items, which ultimately resulted in armor and fantasy dresswear, which is in much more alignment to who I am. And can you believe that once I started creating within my alignment and not what I thought I should make to sell, that it took off? I know, it's crazy.
I mean, it's funny how that works when you align yourself with your passions.
Right?
I mean, it brought us here. So that's for sure.
Right? I know. Yeah. I honestly used to make so much fun of TikTok, like when it started, and that has been, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make one just for the shop's purposes for social media. And it's been my like one, stream of, virality, I guess. Like, I don't know. That's how people find me, is all through TikToks, because I've grown on there. So
yes, I understand this. I know every listener is like, I found you through TikTok. I found you through TikTok.
Say, I know, and I met so many cool people through the app. It's just kind of crazy when I'm just like, 500,000 people saw this video of me. What? Okay.
That point of you're like, oh my God, this many people found me? That's so cool. Oh my God, that many people saw me.
Right. You're like, wow, I can't be unseen now.
Exactly. I guess you did kind of answer this. How did that interest inspire you to start the Goddess Armory?
So yeah, to kind of further dive into that process, when I was in that rebranding phase of going from like functional items and decor, because honestly, that got a little boring and it wasn't that creatively challenging. I wanted to infuse more of my spirituality into my work. So I have been a pagan and I'm a practicing witch for about the last 10 years. And I wanted to combine my love for nature and energetic connection to people into my creations, as they can be deeply personal, especially with customs. I'm a big warrior protector type of divine feminine energy and female empowerment. And I wanted to bring that energy into my work as well. So naturally, the frequently circulating words of Goddess and Armory in my life came together.
That's just so cool. Like I want to know just like a little bit more of like, when you were creating these pieces, like how did you come up with like, oh, this is how we're going to create the armor? Like I can't like conceptualize that in my own head. So like, I want to know, you were creating these beautiful pieces of art that, you hung on your wall, but how did it become like, oh, this is going to become...
You mean like how to physically translate like a 2D wall hanging, like using actual macrame skills to a 3D form? I would say that is a big nod to my sculptural background. So my undergrad BFA was in sculpture, and then production design is kind of a combination of taking all those fine art skills, painting, doing 3D sculpture. It's environmental design. So you have to kind of take all aspects of visual storytelling and put them together. So I had a lot of internships at sculptural workshops. When I, worked for Anthropology in New York, I was building large scale installations. And in my fine art career, sculpture became my passion. So I have pretty much had my hands on every single material, and I've applied it in small to really large scale applications. So my ability to kind of reverse engineer something depending on the sculptural material I'm using, I've just sharpened that skill over time. So I definitely started very basically as far as taking strings and going, how do I put these things together so that they form, something as structural as armor? But over the last couple of years, it just practice. It's kind of like, it was learning how to look at those chords and see how they interact and be able to go, okay, if I want this pattern to end up here, how do I start it over here? And I don't even know if I answered your question, but that's a lot of sculpture experience, basically.
It's just so interesting to see, and I encourage all the listeners to go look at Kristin's profile on her website to see the beautiful creations she's made of I've seen your 2D drawings and then how your whole design process. And we'll dive into that here in just a moment, but it's just so incredible to me. I can't I'm just blown away.
Thank you. I constantly surprise myself, to be honest. I will see something, and some of the, I know we'll talk about inspiration in a second, but there are some beautiful, Iris Van Herpen is probably one of my favorite fashion designers, and they create just beautiful sculptural things with fabric. And I'm like, how do you do that? But I immediately go, how can I make something like that in my medium and in my form? So I just constantly get excited, and I love learning how do I reverse engineer this thing to make it, in sculptural form. So
that's so cool. Okay, so we'll kind of backtrack just a tad. How do you prepare yourself for the process of creating a piece?
Okay, love this question. So I'm sure most of us listening are a big fan of astrology. So I'm a Cancer. It's my sun sign. So I'm a severely mood-based person. So if we're talking about a design for me or for the shop outside of custom work, I usually draw upon different themes, energies, or characters that I come across from shows, books, playing D&D, character stories, or one of the vast mood boards I have on Pinterest. I just constantly, like I said, constantly want to engineer new designs. I'm always fascinated with things I've never made before. So I just get fueled by, once I finish a piece or finish a custom, or, I need some more inspiration, I jump on Pinterest a lot of the time, and I'm like, what have I not made before? What would be more difficult than what I just finished making that I could make, next. So I just love
I feel that.
I hate the same, I just always need the next cool thing.
Oh, I know. I know very well. I'm sure all the producers are sitting here going, yeah, we know, Sam. They're just shaking their heads.
What's the next, what photos, can we do a photo shoot hanging from a helicopter and I'm holding a sword? Yeah.
Oh yeah. What's the next coolest thing? How can I expand more? No, I I understand completely. So we'll tangent here again. So give me your top 3 pieces you've designed, armor you've designed. And I want movie, book, and then some other random.
Oh man, I feel like this is a mean question.
You can't play favorites with your children, right?
I know. I just also especially the custom work I make. I love meeting these people and these clients that come to me and they're like, I want this deeply severe, piece that means a lot to me. And I put so much of my power, using empathy into creating these pieces for people. But without being too sappy, I guess I'll think the first leather tunic that I made for myself was definitely a love passion project. So my best friend group and I, as I'm sure a lot of us are Sarah J. Maas fans.
Yes.
I am the Manon Blackbeak in my best friend circle. So I wanted to make her flying leathers, and it was, this is another example of how I have no chill. So I can't just I just can't just like make a small thing just to test out a new material. I was like, all right, I've been doing leather cord or cotton cord. I've been using that material since the beginning of the shop. Like I really want to move to leather. It's the next material that's going to cost more. It's going to be interesting how to see how that material works. So for my first leather piece, I did a full leather tunic to test out the material. And I made Manon's Flying Leathers version 1 because I definitely want to redo it again. But that's probably one of them. Let's see. I actually did also make, if we're kind of going on the streak, one of my other best friends in our group is the Lysandra. So I did a cotton and leather piece. It was more conceptual than it was a lot of my other traditional pieces in my shop, but we designed it conceptually where it was Lysandra transforming into the snow leopard. So
that's so cool.
All the concepts are about like, there's a lot of bone and skeletal design aspects in there, but we also wanted to acknowledge Lysandra's that divine feminine power, her sensuality, like how she uses it as a character. So it was this concept of feminine empowerment, but also like visceral transformation of her going into the snow leopard. And yeah, that one was pretty fun. We actually wore both of those to the Maryland Renaissance Festival.
That's so cool.
She was just like beautifully scantily clad in this like small green mini dress and then this bone piece layered thing over her.
Are these on your social media or?
Yeah, the Lysandra set is actually available. It's one of those, like, I also made both of these designs, like if somebody wanted to buy them. It's on the page. It's a really neat concept piece.
Okay, I don't know if I saw that one. Probably because I was like drawn to like black and then like the shiny silver. I was like, that's all I saw.
Yeah, and then I made an Aelin Galathinius tunic. That was her royal battle tunic. So I would probably say, yeah, those would be like the 3 favorites just because they hold a lot of meaning. And yeah, it was my first big hoorah, I think, into armor designs.
Oh, and you picked some badass characters too to do it with.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Now I'm going to go stalk your site even more now. I'm sure everyone else is. But so so you offer a thing called Design and Sketch. Can you walk us through what that is for the process of custom armor?
Sure. So the armor design consultation and sketch is kind of a separate aspect. One of the things that I offer. So let me back up. So let me just start off with someone who wants custom armor because it's something a little different. So when someone emails me seeking custom armor, I initially send back like a written version of the entire process from start to finish so they know exactly what to expect with like timeline and price. We then will schedule a 30-minute video chat consultation, design consultation. And I do this so I could get to know them better. Like, who are they? What's their story? Why are they looking to get a piece? How do they want it to make them feel? And that really directs me into what their piece or set is going to look like by way of material choices and knotting styles. And after that consultation is over, I sketch up my interpretation and we go through that sketch process until they feel it's complete. From there, it's usually the hard part on their end for waiting for me to finish it. So, but I definitely like send progress photos along the way. So specifically asking about the armor design consultation sketch, that is something that I offer if someone's interested in knowing what their personal armor or fantasy dress wear would look like, but is unsure if they actually want it made yet, like wants to go through the actual, making and purchasing of the physical item. So I made this an option because a lot of people reached out really interested in knowing like, well, I would love to know like what my personal armor would look like. So yeah, in this option, you get the video consultation and the physical sketch mailed to you with, of course, the option of ever having it made in the future.
So I did that and because I got it as a Christmas present, your Design and Sketch. And then it's very hard to not want to buy it fully made. I was like, okay, we'll just stop there and we'll wait. And then I saw it and I was like, okay, no, I need this made like now.
Yeah, and again, I didn't have any malicious intent with like going like, ha ha ha, I know people are gonna love this. Like, it's a really cool design. But generally, yeah, I mean, if I was on the other end of it and I saw what my personal armor would look like, I'd be like, well, duh, I want to wear that.
It's so hard to stop at that point, but it's a nice offer to have because I told you, and for the listeners, was I'm going to frame that piece of artwork that Kristin made, the sketch of my armor, because I was like, well, it needs to be framed because I'm not going to be wearing the armor every day as much as I want to. As much as I want to, it's not what I can't sit at the computer and do my work.
Please film some TikTok set of videos where you go grocery shopping.
Yes.
In this full leather set, because I just need to see people's reactions, like, if anything.
I will. Everyone's going to hold me to this now, but because it's not going to be edited out, I'll be held to it. So yes, I will for sure do that, but I can't wear it every day. So I was like, well, I'm going to frame your artwork and put it on my wall. It is going on this wall, by the way. That was my intention. So but it's such a fun offer. And like we talked, we talked about in the last episode, I was like, what would your character, your like alter ego, your character look like, and what would they wear? And this is a fun way to like conceptualize that to life. At least step one, and then step two comes along to get it made.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of the time, like, not that I have a ton of extra time in my life, but I have a section of my sketchbook that is just pages of things that I would love to make, or like new ideas or, new pieces that if I ever could fit in for myself or like Ren Fair, all that, I would do that. So that's my dedicated section of like really cool ideas.
I know. And I love your, I'm going to say it wrong. Mithril?
That's right. Yeah, Mithril. Mm-hmm.
I said it to one of my sisters, and like, you said it wrong. I was like, that's probably true. That material is so beautiful. And can you describe that for listeners?
Sure. So this, if you could guess, the idea for this mithril piece came around during when we were watching the Lord of the Rings, the new
Rings
series
of Power?
on Prime. Rings of Power. So I discovered this beautiful material that is a flexible metal. So I primarily was working in cotton or leather cord. And I got a sample in the mail from like one of my suppliers, and since it was during the holiday time, it was, shiny, and I was like, oh, cool. But it is actually like the cord itself is made up of like 10 to 20 really, really thin metal fibers that are twisted together. So the tensile strength of it together is really flexible, but it's extremely lightweight. So I was like, you know what? I think this would do really well. So basically the mithril piece was a little passion project of one of those designs that I had in my sketchbook that I like really wanted to make and get to. And then to kind of do a material test. And it ended up being so successful. Like, this is not only looks like metal plate armor, but structurally also acts like plate armor would, but is probably like a 10th of the actual weight of what metal armor would be on your body. So for me, I put that thing on so many times. I was like, this is a game changer in the cosplay, Ren Fair armor wearing world, because it's flexible metal, and it was way easy to work with. So
it really is mithril.
I'm secretly hoping one of my next commissions will be using this material coming up, because they make it in gold and silver. So
I definitely, like, I was like, oh, do I do another custom order with one of these? No, you need to chill.
I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm mostly just excited to get to yours. I'm like starting it next week.
Oh, yay.
I mean, I made all your chainmail, so there's that, but
yes. Well, that leads us into the next question is, do you have a favorite material to work with? You've mentioned so many already.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely say very easily leather and chainmail, especially together. Leather just it's always been one of my favorite materials, and like in general, before I actually used it in any sort of like sculptural sense. I think it's just like beautiful, and also it smells really good. So, but using there's different varieties of leather when it comes to cord. So like round versus flat. It can give a lot of really cool texture. It also is like conceptually a way more aligned nod to actual armor, like druids and rangers wear leather. So to me, it has more of that nice visceral realistic component to it. And come on, chainmail. Like,
I mean, yeah, you can't go wrong with chainmail. And then with like the leather and the contrasting colors, like I think that just looks so cool together.
Yeah. And there's so much you can do with a combination of those materials. I mean, even if we were talking about leather armor just in its traditional sense, in using in pattern cutting, but what's cool about because I'm knotting everything, you could just hook those little circles, those little chains into wherever in the piece, and it's pretty cool.
It's like when we do braids and we put the hair jewelry in.
Yeah.
Just
exactly.
Hook them right in for a simpler look. So, what is your favorite style of armor to create or even wear?
Okay, this is such an easy answer. I'm team shoulder armor, so pauldrons all the way. Anything that is even a cool, really complex shoulder armor piece that goes into a chest or like down the arm. I love wearing it and making it. That's and also like anything corset related is a close second.
You can't go wrong with a corset though.
Never. I don't know. Like it's like I said before, I'm like consider myself a professional Ren Fair goer, and there's nothing like suiting up or putting on garb. Even like we all do this. It's you do it in the parking lot right before, because you can't drive in everything.
No.
So you get there and it's that suit up time where you're like, time to go.
Yes. It's such I remember when like I had my corset on for the last Ren Fair. Like I could sit in mine, but by the end of the day I was like, take this thing off of me. And like just unhooking it and just like the breath of air. My sisters were dying. They were like, are you okay? I was like, I just could breathe again. But it felt so cool.
Yeah. There are definitely sometimes like I've had to drive wearing like an underbust corset because I had so many other layers that it would have just taken too long to put everything on when we got there. And I was like, I don't want to wait half an hour before I can actually go in. So
I get it. I understand completely. So is there any aspect of your process you love the most? I feel like that's a really tough question.
Yeah. I'd probably say this is a twofold answer. Firstly, I think I also mentioned a little bit earlier, but I really love meeting people and getting to know their stories, like during the design consultations. I'm really able to draw the most inspiration from them directly into the designs. And secondly, this might sound silly, but like I love when the piece is finished. it usually takes a good amount of time for these to be made, and they're all labors of love, but there's like nothing quite like the feeling of a laborious project being complete. And then ultimately, right, seeing the reactions of the clients and the people who I've made it for, because it's ultimately going to empower them. So
the joy of like seeing your clients' reaction from it, or like some people are like, oh, thank God I'm done with this project. For you, I'm sure it's like, I can finally pass this on to them.
Well, yeah, it's like, it's really cool during the concepting and designing phase. And then, making the actual piece, I get a lot of joy of like the actual craft. But I really think the magic of what this whole exchange is for me making armor for people is when they get it and they put it on and they're like, wow, this is a huge aspect of who I am, or I get to feel like my most aligned self and go and be out in the world. I mean, yeah, it's the same thing for me. When I walk around the Ren Fair in that garb, I'm like, everyone out of my way. Like, this is who I am. This is my truest nature, and I'm having a blast.
Totally. I think the most fun I've ever had dressing up was going to Ren Fair, because it felt like I was finally like embracing who I was, and that's a trip.
To me, it's like all of my past lives are like, this is where you need to exist on a day-to-day basis. Like, I wish I could Ren Fair hop so I could just basically the entire year just keep going to Ren Fairs. Yeah. Okay,
since we're on Ren Fair, I have to ask, what is your favorite Ren Fair? Like, out of all, I'm sure you've been to so many. So which one's your favorite to go to?
Man, I mean, so the Georgia I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and the Georgia Fair is my home one, which I've been to for 6 years now. But I've been to one in Tuxedo, New York. So it's built up all year round, just like Georgia is, but it's in the mountains and in a forest setting. So the actual layout it's not just like one big circle. It has a really interesting walking path through forest sections. There's a big lake with a dragon statue in the middle. And I just really liked pulling up, and it was very much like you felt like you were going to like a Disney resort where the entranceway was a lot of natural rock, right? And then they had the entryway built into that rock. So you couldn't even see how massive this fair was until you walked around. That's also, I have a couple core memories of that fair too. So there's probably why I love it. That's like the year I picked up archery, and I mean the archery equipment at that fair, any fairs is not good, but I bought like big fawn ears and I showed out at the archery ring in that fair. That one I'd probably say Tuxedo, but I do have plans to go to the Dallas Fair this fall, which I hear is one of the biggest fairs in the country. And a lot of my friends who are big into the cosplay and Twitch community say like that's the one. So I've got some plans for big macrame outfits for that fair.
Oh, I cannot wait to see all of it.
that is the fair I'm planning to do all my marketing at. So, AKA, I get to make a bunch of stuff for myself.
So you're not going to have a booth there. You're going to be a walking advertisement.
Yeah, basically. So that's what I've done at a couple fairs, and that works the best is making pieces and walking around fairs. I think I have had quite people ask me a bunch like you should go to do a Dragon Con booth or do booths at fairs. And I think right now where the shop is set up, I've been gratefully getting so many custom commissions, and it's where I thrive doing those, and I really enjoy doing those. I haven't quite figured out the translation of how it would work if I was a traditional kind of a shop. I don't know exactly like what pieces I would make that would go with the aspect of everything, but who knows? Well,
things could change.
Chill, so yeah, who knows?
No, but it's nice that it's more customized because then you can really create something for those people.
Yeah, and it satisfies my need to continuously make new things all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. So would you say the work is like a meditation for you?
Oh, absolutely. Like from initial consultation to and being an empath, and like feeling a client's energy to channeling it while I'm nodding, during the crafting nodding phase of making their armor, it really just becomes a flow state. I mean, like literally, because I'm making thousands of knots. So I'm usually just like sitting there and it'll get to a point where I'll like finish a section and I will have looked down, not a lot, and be like, oh wow, I've gotten so much done of this piece. That's
so cool. Like, so it's all relative to what kind of material you're working with, but like how many knots do you do in a piece? Like if you were to make a pauldron, like how many knots does that consist of?
I don't even think I could ballpark it unless I like took one out and counted right now, but that also would take too much time.
It's just because you're in that flow and you don't know.
Yeah, I think it also depends on like what knots I'm doing. I think for like the Mithril piece, that is a solidly knotted piece, and I only made that using one knot type, which is called a half hitch knot. And I don't know, man, that one probably has like at 10,000. Like I could have more. I don't know. But yeah, it just really depends on like if it's solidly knotted and am I using square knots or am I using a combination of things? If I were to guess yours, maybe like there might be like 50,000 in your set. Like just ballparking it.
Just a little extra.
But I do have, there's some tricks of the trade to do, depending on what knot it is. Like half hitch knots, there's a trick where I can loop a bunch together, pull the middle string through, and just basically knot like 10 at a time. So it all depends on the section.
That's wild.
It's a little crazy. Yeah, I have people who comment, they're like, like when I do my time lapse videos on TikTok, they're like, your patience is crazy. Like, and I think because I've been doing sculpture and worked in scenic design and worked doing large installations for anthropology, people sometimes don't realize how long things take to actually make, no matter what that material is. So I've also just I've been making things for so many years that to me, it's not patience. To me, it just becomes like this internal mantra, like this internal clock that just can get it done, I guess. And I enjoy it. I get into that, that movement. So
That's so I do love it's like therapeutic watching your time lapse videos of like how you do your whole process. It's I know from a creator standpoint that filming it and taking the time to remember to film all those pieces is time consuming too.
well, fear not. I have actually put in my planner, like yours is also one that I'm like, this will have so much footage of me making this set, because for listeners, this is going to be my most epic leather set that I've ever made. So I'm also really excited that aha moment when I'm all done, I get to look back at that footage and go, dang, you did all that. Look at that.
That's so cool. And yeah, I'm excited to see. Well, you brought it up. Why don't you explain, because you'll do a much better job at explaining what my piece will look like.
Okay. So the one piece that I'm super excited about yours is making is, so it's essentially from the bottom half of it is an underbust corset that I am adding tassets to, like big thigh armor are called tassets. There will also be additional aspects of chainmail that come off of the front, kind of like a small tabard or like loincloth, if you will, on the front and the back. Those tassets are going to be a little bit non-traditional. They'll be multi-layered on the leg. They'll also have attachments that go around the thigh, so just for closure, so they won't be like completely free-forming like traditional ones would be. And then the top, we're kind of doing a crop top style breastplate and back armor attachment. So again, it's like I'm not making like exactly traditional armor pieces because of the materials that we use. Also, one of the big components of yours is mobility. So we wanted to make something that was completely and solidly knotted, that feels battle ready, that feels like armor, but has huge mobility aspects for you to actually fight in it and do all your wonderful fitness fighting in. So I combined a lot of aspects of like comfortability, movement, but traditional like armor shapes that would allow you to look like you're rolling up into battle, but at the same time, you can go grocery shopping in it, right?
I'll just go walking around the neighborhood. I'm sure my new neighbors will love that. Well, then there's a back detail too, right?
We're doing the spine and we brought in some concepts of your love of bats and wings, and Valkyrie. So I'm making a spine that has these really cool gold details and these larger knots. And then I'm going to essentially take a specific style of knot pattern and create parts on the top back that kind of make it have an homage to wings.
I'm so excited. I think I'm most excited about the back.
Yeah. I just can see one of those like over the shoulder shots. Like we're just going to have the photo shoot's going to be killer.
Yes, I know. I was like mapping out what I wanted to do for my photo shoot. And I was like, I don't know yet, but I have like rough ideas, but I
think it's going to come to you when you put it on. You're going to put it on and be like, I need to be here.
I told my friend that's a makeup artist, I was like, you need to do my makeup for this shoot. That's all. She's like, when and where? I was like, we'll let you know. I showed her like your concept art and she was like, okay, whatever you need.
I'm excited to see what like boots you choose to wear with this piece. And you're making your own little bracers. Remember, how's your scale mail coming along?
Not at all. Okay. Not at all. I've had too many projects myself. Too many projects, and I can't be doing more projects at the moment. So, like you, I have zero chill.
Yep. There's too much to experience in life. Like, I'm going to go full out.
I want to do so many things. Let me. If I burn out, whatever. So you've been doing a lot too, I know.
Yeah, but to me, it's like I am the worst at taking time off, but I also like have filled my life with things that I love to do that don't super feel like work. So I'll be on like, day 8 or 9 without a day off. And I'll be like, okay, maybe I should, but I've spent the whole last week working on these epic projects and massaging some horses, so
It's worth it. You have
it's
fun.
love. Yeah.
I get it. So, what goddesses inspire you most?
So, I find myself most aligned with the Greek pantheon, followed by the Norse pantheon. So my main two goddesses are Artemis and Athena. And then I've also found alignment with the Celtic goddess Ellen of the Ways in the last year. So she's new in my life. But Artemis and Athena have always been there from the beginning of my spiritual journey, and everything they each represent and their symbols, I've always found to be just exactly in line with who I am. Did you know that Athena is also the goddess of the arts and crafts, specifically weaving and knotting? Because it's like one of the lesser known aspects of her. I definitely had a good laugh when I realized that after I opened my shop. So I was like, weaving, armor, the goddess of war and wisdom. Like, that's was pretty cool.
It was meant to be. No, Athena's one of my tops as well because I love the Greek pantheon too. So, no, I did know that about I know that about Athena, and I'm sure all the people. I'm actually listening to Percy Jackson for the first time right now, so I'm sure everyone who else has read or listened to Percy Jackson has been like, yeah, we know that too.
Sweet. Yeah, she's definitely like the biggest energy behind my shop work specifically, and and what I do there. And yeah, I got my big tattoo homage to her last fall, so that was also a nice moment of coming together.
That's so cool. I love her. She's everything. But I love that she like definitely is like that full circle for your shop too.
Yeah, I mean the whole we get the word for spider arachnid from a mythology story with Arachnia and Athena.
Yep.
Which is neat. A lot of people don't know about that, but I also studied a ton of Greek mythology in college, which is probably why like that was leading up to me going, oh right, I am a pagan. Like this makes sense.
All full circle or full knot. Should we say full knot?
I mean, yeah, I make a lot of circles technically too. So there's wordplay there.
It has potential. Well, Kristin, you are such a badass and such an incredible creator. It was so great to have you on the podcast today to inspire our warrior listeners.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, this has been super amazing, and you're pretty badass yourself. Like, I was so thrilled to meet you, and I'm so excited about making your piece. And yeah, we can talk about weapons anytime.
All the time. I know I need to pick your brain, and we need to meet at a run fair one day.
Yeah. Well, if you're still going to the one in July,
yes.
Maybe I'll miraculously show up. It's my birthday. You're going on
yes, that's right. I remember. I know. We need to talk about this. So, but we do need to wrap up this podcast. So, this week's piece of cauldron blessed wisdom comes from the Renaissance woman, Kristin herself. So, take it away, Kristin.
All right. So, in being my Renaissance woman self, I would like to draw upon the wisdom of authenticity and alignment, which arguably goes hand in hand. In my adventurous life so far, I've found the choices I made that were truly connected to my innermost, truest self, the ones that my intuition was like, that's the choice, ultimately led to the happiest and most successful version of myself at the time. And just by that practice in making choices using your intuition, rather than the external social conditioning we've all received, you're already setting yourself up for success to be living in alignment. And when you do, it just continues all of the positive, energetic cycles of success, abundance, and love in your life. So much of my young and full adult life was spent trying to calculate my decisions into what I thought was the right one, again, based on millennial social conditioning. This showed up in macro and micro ways of how my life is supposed to play out, or how I was supposed to act or be or present myself. For years, I vividly remember the echo of my father say to me when I was a kid, first you go to college, then probably some more college, then you get a job, then you find a partner and have a family. And I remembered as I was growing into full independence that my body and mind got the biggest ick from that timeline concept. Like, where's the room for life mistakes? How about one with more socialization? It was all too much conditioning to live to work ultimately. So my Renaissance woman self says to you, do all of the things you are called to do in life. Experience, live, breathe in new opportunities, welcome connections, follow your gut, break generational cycles, actively create community, and free yourself of social judgments and constraints. Making choices based off of your truest nature will only ever lead to alignment. So I guess my action item for you is to help you practice this is simple. Meditate, go and walk in nature, make some time to find stillness and hang out with yourself, and those answers and high knowledge will come.
I loved every piece of that. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
That was really good. So, my Valkyries, be strong, kick ass, and be fucking magical every day. This episode was produced by Bex Castro, Mia Garlock, and Carolyn McMorrin. And a special thank you to Kristin Reyelt for joining me today. You can connect with her on Instagram at L1withgoddessl or on her website, onewithgoddess.com. Special thank you to Taylor Ash for creating the music of this podcast. And thanks for listening to The Sword and the Ribbon by the Micro Squad. If you're interested in learning more about the Valkyrie Squad, visit us at thevalkyriesquad.com. If you're interested in learning more about the Micro Squad or Geek Gym for a class, visit us at themicrosquad.com. And make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcasts from so you don't miss out. And if you liked this week's episode, please leave us a review.